Hey guys, welcome into the Shadow Box. I'm Carlise, your grief and trauma coach and your shadow work guide. Today we are entering into the box with Mel Robinson. This is part 2 of her story. And again, Mel tells a lot of her story on Instagram regarding the loss of her mother and her father when she was a young child, and just the process that she's been going through for the last, 25 years
Yeah,
or so?
yeah,
Yeah.
around that. More probably, like 30.
Yeah, so today we're gonna enter into part 2 of Mel's story, and also today we are in the anniversary stage of Mel's father and Mel's brother, and so Mel's gonna share with us a little bit of what she's been going through these last few days. Her birthday is coming up. If it hasn't passed, your birthday hasn't passed yet,
No, it
has it?
hasn't. No, I've still got about a
Okay.
week and a bit.
Okay, so birthday coming up and just what she's been processing and how it's been going for her. So Mel, go ahead and fill us in.
Yeah, thank you, colleagues. Yeah, I'm glad that we've been able to do part 2 because there is a lot to my journey. So I appreciate you taking the time to invite me back on again. And yeah, the last few days have been tough. It was my dad's 25-year death anniversary a couple of days ago. And I wanted to do some things to honour him on the day, and I was able to do that. So I first started off with going gentle with myself and holding my heart. I did some gentle tapping, and I listened to some griefy tunes, some music, and yeah, was able to release a lot of pent up sadness and the tears, and there was no, stopping that, just allowing them to come up and flow and, yeah, come out of the body. And that was really powerful. So that was the start of my morning, and just making sure that I was, nourishing myself. So made sure that I had a nice light breakfast and could ease into the day. And then I visited the cemetery. So I think I shared online that I don't particularly like going to the cemetery. I do it, but I do it more out of respect, and obviously as my dad's resting place, and my foster mum Jan and her family members are there as well. So her son actually has a bench, and I usually sit up there and I'll listen to the birds, and yeah, it can be nice. But the weather hasn't been too great here, so on my dad's anniversary day, wasn't able to sit up there.
Okay.
I did take some time, which was nice, and I'd already had the thought of getting a gift to actually gift to a stranger. So that's something that I put together. So it
That
was,
wait, don't skip past that. That is something different. Tell me about that.
yeah. So I decided that because my dad always had a sweet tooth, I wanted to gift a box of chocolates. And I also created some badges as well, which say normalise grief on them, and I'm grieving, please be kind, which are just little pin badges that you can wear. And then I wrote a little note as well in a card just to say that it was my dad's anniversary and I wanted to do something to honour him, and yeah, just enjoy the chocolates basically. So as I was going
Awesome.
to the cemetery, I left them on the fence panel, and by the time I'd been there and tidied up and stuff, yeah, I came back and the bag had gone. So
Oh,
yeah, that made me, yeah, make me smile.
oh,
And
that makes me a little teary-eyed. That's awesome. I
yeah,
love that. I
yeah,
mean, and just being able to open yourself up in your own time of grief, right?
hmm,
Because you know what it's feeling like for those who are coming to the cemetery and, having these moments because you're having them yourself,
yeah,
and just someone else who may not be on social media platforms or may not be talking about certain things, you're letting them know you're not alone and you're being thought of. And I love that.
oh, thank you. Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to do something that I knew my dad would be like grinning like ear to ear as well. Like I said, he had a sweet tooth. He was, a larger man, like he loved food and stuff like that. And I just thought, oh, at least with something with chocolate, like everyone loves chocolate. So I
Yeah.
even bought chocolates for myself that day as well that I've been spacing out, shall we say, since that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I ended up making a meal as well for my family. And it was sort of Caribbean inspired because my dad was Bayesian. He was from Barbados. That's where he was born and lived for the first 6 years of his life before coming to England. So I wanted to create something that was colourful and, yeah, tasty. And yeah, that'll
Yeah.
be that.
What did that consist of? Tell me about that cuisine.
What was in it, like ingredient wise?
No, what was the dish?
Oh, what was the dish? Oh, sorry, it was a Caribbean vegetable curry with rice and peas. And yeah, then we had the chocolates after for like our dessert, our little sweet. And
Yeah.
I watched The Lion King as well, which is like my all-time favorite film. And I think I shared online that I know that obviously Mufasa he dies, and yeah, it could bring up some things, but I kind of felt like I leaned towards that because I knew what the story was about. I love all the songs that are in it, and yeah, just the meaning behind it. So I was able to watch that. And yeah, as you probably heard, I've got a dog. So Millie was there giving me lots of cuddles and just gentle support through the day as well, which I needed. It's
Yeah.
like we don't deserve animals sometimes. They always pick up, when we need them the most. And
Yeah.
yeah, she just was obviously there for me through the day, as well as my partner and my children as well, and my partner's family and friends and such. Yeah, I had a lot of lovely, warm and supportive messages over the last few days. People still messaging now that I've seen
Yeah.
the post that I've put out about my day of honouring my dad and remembering my dad after 25 years. So, yeah.
Yeah. And tell me, what are you feeling differently now than what you were feeling when you initially lost him? Is there a difference in that grieving process, do you think?
Yeah, I think because obviously I've been on this journey for a long time, it's changed over the years. And obviously back then I was once a kid and didn't have the support, I didn't have the communication, them conversations and things. Whereas now I've grown and I understand it more, and I can do things as little or as much as I need to, and there is no pressure there. And I think that's the beauty of it, really. There is no pressure. Just have to do
Yeah.
what feels right for you.
Yeah. Did your father have like a favorite song that you played or anything of that nature?
Not that I can remember, no, because I think I've shared that I don't know too much about my dad and my mum. It's things that I'm learning as I go on, and especially like reconnecting with my dad's sister as well, my auntie. That's been really healing for me. But as far as songs and favorite things, drinks, or food, or anything like that, or places, I'm not too sure about. But like I said, I'm learning. I'm learning as we go.
Yeah. And that's interesting because that doesn't take away from the relationship that you had with him,
Mm,
right? That was your dad, that was your person.
yeah,
And um, you were just you were a child who was processing along and was just kind of going along with everything. So it wasn't, I know previously you mentioned, there was a favorite, you had like a favorite snack that he would make sure you had.
oh yeah, my biscuits and lemonade. Yeah,
Yeah. So things of that nature, like you have those experiences, but it didn't, which is huge. But
mm,
the personal aspects of, his growing up and just kind of who he was as a man,
mm,
I think that is what differentiates who he was as a father.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if I'm hearing you correctly, that's the part that you're learning of who he was as a
Yeah,
man, as a person.
yeah, 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 100%. Yeah, because I do have, it's quite vague. I do remember certain things about
Mhm.
my dad, as like his personality and obviously the way, he was, but I don't remember, the things you want to remember. I don't remember his voice, and that can be hard because I don't have anything physical, unfortunately, to be able to hear that again. And
Yeah.
that's something I think a lot of people carry is they're not, hearing them anymore. That's something that's, it's been quite prevalent really in my journey. It's
Yeah.
not in
And
that.
just kind of goes along with that feeling of that fear of forgetting them.
Mm, yeah, 100%. And that's what I try to do with the page is I want to keep them alive, through memories and things that come up, like I said, that I learn about. I want to be able to share that. Like I shared a picture that I hadn't seen before, a few months back that I'd seen at my auntie's, and I took a picture of it and I was able to share that because, my dad, he was my dad, but he also was a person before that. Um,
Definitely.
Same with
Do
my
you
family.
do you remember anything like specific that he said to you or that he would say to you?
Mm, Not really. Like, I think one of the things I shared about is that my mum and dad had a nickname for me, which was Minnie, after Minnie Mouse. So
Hmm.
that's one of the things that sticks in my mind is that, that was just my nickname. And
Okay.
as regards to, saying things, I always remember the story. I don't know if you've heard of it, Guess How Much I Love You, which
Mhm.
is it's basically it's a children's book about a big hare and a little hare, and it's a beautiful book. But I
Mhm.
remember that saying of "Guess how much I love you," and I don't know where that comes from. Like I said, I don't know if I've maybe heard it, like either from my dad more so because I had more time with him than my mum. But there was always this talk of this book. So
Yeah.
that's something that stuck with me. But with regards to like advice or words of wisdoms or anything like that, I don't remember anything like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I was mainly asking that because and this is just kind of experimental, if you were to remember something he said to you and just kind of sit in silence with it and just remember it, then maybe parts of his voice would come back to you,
Yeah,
you
hear what
know?
you're saying. Yeah, that's something
Um,
for me to take on board and maybe try because
mhm.
I think I haven't tried to do. I do try to connect in, but I find it easier with my mum. Again, I don't know my mum's voice, but I actually find it easier to connect in with my mum than my dad. I don't know why that is. I think it's because of how my dad was as a person. He was just, you know, um, I said it like emotionally unavailable. Like I can just, imagine wherever they are right now, my dad will just be in the background doing his thing, and just my mum is just, I'm just my mother's daughter, basically. I'm
Yeah.
just another
Is she
copy
carrying you?
of her, basically. So I think she would very much be talking the talk and getting to know everyone, whereas my dad would be in the background, and yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I always
And
remember.
she carried you. And so you heard her voice for a very long time. So
Yes.
that, prior to you coming into the world. And so that would kind of stick with you and be more in your subconscious, I would imagine.
Mhm.
And your dad, because even though he was physically here for a certain amount of time, um, you had a different connection with mom that was more
Mhm.
innate for a certain amount of time. That's been engraved in you, put it that
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
Right.
100%, and
All
I
right.
I feel it all the time, yeah. It's powerful.
Yeah. And so what else? Phyllis, what else has been going on?
So obviously today is my brother's 15-year anniversary as well. So February's just the month with different dates with different meanings. And it's 15 years without my big brother. So I mentioned before that my mum had two sons prior to me. And it was my brother John that died suddenly. And I haven't, it sounds not bad, but I haven't honored him in the same way that I have my dad because our relationship was very different. He didn't grow up with me because there was the age difference. He had his own family. He lived further away from me. And we just didn't have that close sibling bond. So it definitely feels different. I've looked at some pictures that I have, and I've shared a picture as well. But I just feel like it's more of a within that I'm remembering him as opposed to, yeah, like showing, like I just remembering him quietly.
Yeah. I like how you said you're remembering him quietly.
Mm.
Do you feel that you're grieving him is more so of the lost time or the time you didn't have with him, or just a close loss within life itself, because he was your sibling, if that makes
Yeah,
sense?
I think the first part. I think because I wish that things could have been different, you know. And it kind of not going on a tangent about it, but sometimes I do think, what if it wasn't just me? Like, obviously, I grew up as an only child, so I think, what if I did have like my brothers were there with me, growing up with me? Would it have been different? And yeah, we can go down that pathway of what ifs, but can't change it. But yes, it is something that plays in my mind quite a lot, where I think, if I just had that close sibling bond, just someone, that was there, just, going through this journey with me, basically. But yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately, I just didn't have that.
yeah, and that is a lonely journey, definitely a lonely journey, and it strengthens you in a way, and it gives you, an understanding, I think a deeper understanding when you are learning so much on your own, right? When you're learning how to navigate through your own feelings of the grief, your own physicalities of the grief, and being able to observe what it's doing to others while you're sitting in what it's doing to you, because that's all that you have, right? You don't have anyone, like you said, to share it with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's more concentrated in you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even you just saying that off of the back of that is what's coming up for me, is that I always had to be like mindful of my dad's wife's emotions and just reading the room. That's what comes up
Yeah.
for me. Reading the room of how she was going to be, because it wasn't just me that was grieving, it was her. And you know, um, as much as a lot's happened there, I was always mindful of that. That we all are experiencing different emotions and it comes out in different ways. But it was
Yeah.
something that, basically put me in survival mode, really, because I was always, second guessing everything. And like I said, reading the room and walking on eggshells and how's this person's mood going to be today? And I never really focused more on what I was feeling. It was what was going
Right.
on with others around me.
Yeah. Yeah, so that kind of dives right into what we're going to talk about next, because when we finished up our first part, we were finishing up on you finally moving in with your now partner and his parents.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of transferring into what some would call adulthood. You were out there by yourself pretty much. And when you don't know how to, when you're trying to regulate your own emotions, you're trying to regulate your own thought processing on what your life has been, it carries over in so
Mhm.
many different areas, especially when you are that young.
Yeah.
So let's start talking about what was that transition like, and how was that transition moving in with your now partner and his family coming from your background?
Yeah. So obviously I mentioned before, it was my partner's mum that offered for me to go and live with them. And it was my partner and his siblings. He's the eldest of four. And it was, I'm not going to lie, it was hard
Mhm.
because it all happened so quickly. Like I mentioned before, leaving Jan's house was, it was quite chaotic. We had to empty a whole house, me and her daughter, and it was just all, a bit of a whirlwind. So moving in there, it was a big step for me, and it's something I had to decide quite quickly because I didn't have anywhere else to go.
Right.
And then, I'd always lived with, apart from the children's home, I'd always only lived with either one other person or two other people. So to move in with a family, it was different. because it's not
Yeah.
something I'd experienced before. So
And
yeah,
how so? How was it different for you?
I think it was just obviously more bodies and
Mhm.
yeah, it was, it's a lovely house, but yeah, it was, yeah, there was just not a lot of space, shall we say. Um, if there was things going on that you just needed a minute, it was finding that place to kind of just sit and be, and noise and yeah, just busyness. So
Busyness.
yeah, just having to
Yeah.
just slot in. And yeah,
Mhm.
obviously my brother died, yeah, not long after I moved in. So having my other brother then come down to tell me the news again, it was just a lot.
Yeah. And moving into another space with more bodies, coming
Mm,
from a home where you were the only child, you had a lot of time to yourself, by yourself, all these things, even though you had um, your outside friends or what have you.
yeah.
Uh, but you were mainly by yourself a lot. And
Mm,
so that would contribute into like the overwhelmed part of like, oh my God, all these people.
yeah.
And even just shifting into the new personality dynamics too. You're
Mm,
having different people that you have to get used to, and how are you supposed to communicate with them? How are they receiving you? Because you had a lot of trauma coming in.
mm,
And so you were probably like super hyper vigilant about, how are they looking at me? Is their tone okay? Am I doing this okay? Are they receiving me? Um, am I going to have to leave? Like you were probably just on edge a lot.
mm,
And how did you regulate that thought processing and the emotion of coming out of such trauma and then coming into something that was different and probably even a little bit more maybe structured or settling.
mm.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah. No, it definitely makes sense. Yeah. And I just think, like, I'm fortunate that the family that I've now become a part of are a very loving family,
Mhm.
and to feel that love around and that support is something that, apart from Jan, that's what I'd been lacking.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel really fortunate for that. But yeah, it definitely took a lot of time to adjust. And yeah, like I said, I'm really glad that I've been able to do that. But it's been a journey in a journey.
Yeah.
Forever.
So, so give me an example, just a light example of being treated right, being treated with love
Mm,
when you thought that you had to be on edge, or maybe when you um, misperceived something, misunderstood something that wasn't meant in a way that would have been meant in a previous household. Like,
mm.
how did you navigate that? Were you just quiet and observant, or did you find yourself um, anticipating the negative when it was actually positive that was coming in?
Yeah, I think you saying the word observant, I think I've always been that way. I think that
Mhm.
I always just look from the outside in and without leaning in too much. Like I've always been that way. But I think it's because of what's happened that it's made me that way, and I don't make myself wrong for that either. You know,
Yeah.
it's it's quite a skill to have really, because yeah, I'm the quiet one, and they say you got to look out for the quiet ones sometimes.
Yeah. And so I imagine that because you entered into a loving family,
Mm,
and they knew your background, they knew what you were coming in with, and you were observed. You weren't observed. You were a person who observed a lot,
mm,
but you probably kind of isolated a lot too.
mm,
And with that being said, they had to kind of come in and show you that it was safe, come in and kind of pull you out of your comfort zone so
mm.
that you would know that your emotions and expressions and just you being in their space was safe. Would you say
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
case?
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's taken time, and I'm one of these people that I do have my barriers up most of the time. And I've shared before that I am a very private person. So
Mhm.
to have, deep like conversations, I can do that, but it takes time and it takes trust. I think that's the word, trust. It's
Yeah.
trusting because yeah, the fear in the back of my mind was what you said earlier about, what if this doesn't work out? Because yeah, obviously I'm still with my partner, but there is a chance that, it's different with being with someone, but actually living with someone and their family, which is a whole different ball game. Yeah, you just didn't know. I just didn't know which way it was going to go, but thankfully it's been a positive one, positive experience.
Yeah. So continue with your journey. So you move into the home with your partner and his family,
Yeah.
and then from there.
Yeah. So then we lived in the home for how long was it? It would have been around 4 years, I think. Maybe 4 years, I think, that we lived with my partner and his family before I fell pregnant with our first son. And we lived there once he was born for around a year, I think it was. And then we ended up moving into our own place and started life as a family of three. So yeah,
And you were 17 at this time, or
no, so I would have been, so when Jan died, it was before I turned 21. So yeah, it would have
oh,
been, so I would have been 20, 20, I think, if I'm getting it right. 20 when I moved in with my partner and his family.
okay,
And then, lived there for I think around 4 years, I think. Um, but yeah, my timings might be a little bit off, but around 4 years. And then,
that's okay.
we ended up, having our first son, and then we
Okay.
there for a while, moved out. So
Okay. So 4 years later, about 4 years later, then you had your first son, and
yeah,
then you moved into your own place. So we're thinking about 25-ish, around
around
25.
that, yeah.
Okay. So 25 coming from everything that you've come through. What was that change in starting to build your own family? What did that look like for you?
I mean, if I take it right back, it was the pregnancy, the first pregnancy. It was, obviously you find out you're pregnant and it's full of excitement, and I did feel that way, but in the back of my mind there was a lot of anxiety.
Okay.
And there was a lot of, unknowns and not knowing how I was feeling day to day. Like I experienced some of the typical pregnancy symptoms, which is, the sickness and my body changing and hormones, etc. And that in itself is tough to navigate. But not doing it with the person that I needed the most, which was my mum, just
Yeah.
made it just 10 times harder.
Yeah. And what do you, and this is kind of an obvious question for some, but I want to ask you because that's an area that you didn't have. What do you think your having your mom in that space and time would have done for you?
I think it's just like I'm going back to the unknowns. I haven't done this before. I don't have a manual or a guidebook. And I just feel like if I had my mum there, it would just be that reassurance and that shoulder when things were feeling hard and heavy, that I could have just had that person there just to tell me it's going to be okay. And this is what the outcome will be, or just to hear like you're doing okay, like, and obviously my partner was there and his family there and my friends and everyone's there to support, which I'm so thankful for. But the one person I wanted, and needed was my mum, because that's what you see is the typical, your mum's going through to the pregnancy, the scans, and is typically sometimes your birthing partner. And I was able to I took a picture of my mum when I went to give birth to my son, and
Okay.
I ended up having a cesarean with him as well. So again, that was just another lot of trauma because I'd already been battling with the unknowns and the anxiety and health anxiety and everything, that I had all these fears coming up. And again, it was something that wasn't in my control, but
Yeah.
ultimately that's what ended up happening. But again, it just brought just a whole level of, yeah, just scariness.
Yeah. And, that's one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, or a lot of women don't talk about of, when you do become pregnant and you have suffered so many losses, close losses to you, there's a different shift in your thought processing regarding the pregnancy itself, regarding the laboring, regarding your child. Like you start to kind of map out things. You start to kind of plan out scenarios or circumstances or just something to keep you prepared, so to speak,
Mm.
keep you prepared from whatever the possibilities could be.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what how did you find that playing out in your mind as you were going through your pregnancy?
I think just touching on what you said about the fear-based thing, from my experience, it was, yeah, the fear of something happening to me,
Mhm.
especially going down like the cesarean path as well. And yeah, obviously the fear of losing him as well, and yeah, I just think that's all that's coming up for me really is just about the unknowns and the fact that I just hadn't done this before. And
Yeah.
you have like this sort of map in your head the way you think it's going to go, and it doesn't go that way. And I think the word that comes to mind for me is control, because I never had that. I never had control over my own life. And this is something that I could have been in control of, and it didn't go the way that I anticipated
Yeah.
it to go. So I feel like it was just a lot. Like it was a time of happiness, but yeah, a lot of anxiety as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you brought up the aspect of control too.
Mm.
Right? Because when you do become a parent, and that child is live and active in your life, you are in control for a long amount of time.
Yeah.
But then you start to realize how much you're not in control. Like you
Mhm.
can't be with them all the time. You can't do X, Y, and Z. You can't control the driver in the other car. You can't
Yeah.
all of these things. And that it for me, it paralyzed me.
Mm.
I mean, I was in fear for a long time. It took me a long time, and I'm better. I'm a lot better than what I used to be, but that fear after having a child is deep.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. And I think like the fact that I didn't have the two people that brought me into the world just made it that bit harder for me, because it was just, again, the only word I can use is unknown, because I didn't have anyone to ask the questions.
Yeah.
There was no one to give me answers or guidance. And yeah, I almost had this thing in the back of my mind where I was thinking that I was brought up in this, unstable, traumatic environment. And I almost didn't want that to plan out into how I was raising my first child, like that was one of the things that I've had to do a lot of work on is, patterns and learned behaviors and things like that, which is, yeah, that's another big thing, that I've had to do, but it's something I'm working on all the time, especially as my children have got older. Um,
Yeah. Do you wanna share a pattern that you're trying to unlearn in your parenting process?
yeah, so I think um, the first thing is probably anger. I think is something that people don't talk enough about. It's one of them emotions we all get angry. And
Mhm.
I think because obviously from a young age I've been labelled as the angry child, and the naughty child. Um, yeah, it's kind of, as my children have got older, it's realising that, it's okay for them to express themselves and their emotions freely, because I never had that. I was always
Okay.
shut down, you know, and I just knew as a mother, as a parent, I just wanted to parent differently,
Mhm.
you know, because we're not going to get it right. We are going to make things wrong, you know, do things wrong and make mistakes. But thankfully, with my partner, you know, we're on the same page and the way that we want to raise our sons. But yeah, it's in the back of my mind. I do have certain times, you know, where I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling dysregulated, and yeah, I might snap. But one thing I've always done different is I always apologise.
Yeah.
And I never had that. I never had an apology. And if it was, it would be a drunk one, or it would be a quick, oh, I love you, but you made me do it, you know? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's me recognising that, you know, when I do have these moments, that I am human, but I also can repair. And I'm very big on that. And the same with my partner as well. You know, we
Yeah.
always apologise and always say sorry. And um, yeah, we can be pretty vulnerable and open and honest with the kids, you know, in an age-appropriate way. But just
Right.
having them conversations it's been really powerful for us as a family, really, that we're all on the same sort of page.
Now, and I know sometimes parents can go on extreme sides of the spectrum, right? When you are trying to um, compensate for something you didn't have.
Yeah,
So in your instance, you weren't able to express yourself, and
yeah,
you've given your children the free will to express themselves.
yeah.
Have you found yourself, did you know how to do that and make sure that they did it respectfully and that they didn't just express because you're giving them the freedom to? Did they have confines, or was it just a free for all and you want to reel them in like, okay, you can say this, but you can't say it this way?
Yeah, so I think it's the second part. I think it's more of it's been quite free and open because that's how we are. And you know, it's having them conversations, like I say, going back to like the age appropriate way. You know, something I actually say is that it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to be mean, you know, and that's something that I always seem like I'm repeating, but
Yeah.
it's one thing that, yeah, it's just kind of come to mind and stuck there really is, yeah, it's okay to be angry. It's not okay to be mean. And yeah, I'm just going to continue in that way, you know, because like I said, there is no right or wrong. You know, we're doing it as best we can. And yeah, I haven't done this before. So
Right now,
slowly do it.
you have how many children?
I've got two sons. Yeah, I've got my eldest son who's 10, and then my youngest is 6.
Okay, so they're right at that ripe age.
Yeah,
Right
yeah.
at the ripe
My
age.
toes.
Yeah, definitely. Do you what are you worried about transferring or projecting onto your kids
I
from
think
your past experience?
um I think one of the big things that comes to mind is because of the fact I was brought up around a lot of routine. I've had
Mhm.
to kind of squash that down a bit over the years. Like when they were
Okay.
a lot younger, it was, you know, what you see on the TV and you read about, you know, making sure they have their naps at a certain time, they feed at a certain time. And I think I was very regimented with that. But then
Mhm.
as they got older, I just leaned into you know, just chill a little bit, Mel, you know, just relax and just embrace it a bit more. It doesn't have to be so structured. But
Yeah.
again, it's recognizing that, and I did see that, you know, and I could understand where it had come from, but I just turned it on its head and just said, I'm just not bringing them up in that way. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're not
And it's
feral. They are what you would call the wild child, you know.
they're just children,
Yeah,
right? They're
yeah,
just children.
exactly.
Would you say that that you are building the family that you never had?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's what I think, like, you know, I say it quite openly that I call them my sunshines, as in SON shines. And I just feel like they've been, they've been given to me. I've been blessed with them for a reason,
Yeah.
and our kids are there to mirror things to us, they are our big mirrors. And it's not always, it's not always easy. And, I like to use the word triggered a lot because I do get triggered a lot. And
Yes.
not always calm and collected. I am, dysregulated some of the time.
Yeah.
But it's just having that awareness there that if I need to have a minute, I vocalize that, and it's not, I'm just hiding away and, I'm not there using them as an emotional pillow, should we say, but I'm there
Right.
telling them, this is how I'm feeling right now, and you felt this way before, and just letting them know that it's human and it's okay to feel,
Yeah.
and just giving them, I guess, that permission really.
Yeah. How do they support you in your times of grief?
Um, I would say, well, with my oldest, obviously, he's more aware. Like, I've always spoken openly about the fact that my parents have died. So they know, they obviously early on, my eldest recognised the fact that he only had one set of grandparents
Okay.
that were, on the earth. And basically, I've always been open with them both about it. And they ask questions, and we have conversations around, death and dying. And like I said before in the last episode, that I am quite not blunt, but I do use the word, died. I don't say that they fell asleep. I don't say that they passed away. I say that they died. And we've spoke about cancer before, and we've had quite deep discussions about different things, because obviously children are quite inquisitive anyway. They like to be in the know and ask questions, and my two are definitely like that. But again, I
Yeah.
think it's because we have these open conversations, which I think are so important. And like I said, because I didn't have that, I'm learning as I go. And like I said, I don't know if I will get it right. And I'm not aiming for that either. I'm just I've always said I just wing it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's it's hard to say that, or you would think that it sounds, not so heritage to say that, but
Mm,
that's what it is. Like every day, and you have two kids, right? So
mm,
you kind of get to learn after one after the other, and kind of like, oh, I can't do that, and maybe let me do this a little bit differently.
mm,
Um, but what I do recognize as you're talking, um, like you said, being open with your kids, having those open conversations with them and allowing them to express and just kind of being real and authentic with them. And
mm,
I think that that comes from the aspect of the experiences that you've had, the traumatic experiences that you had with people, with the circumstances, with all of that. And how off-putting it was. How it kind of swept the rug from up under you, you
mm,
know, not being able to trust people, not being able to feel safe in environments, all of these things, especially with people who were supposed to protect you, right?
mm,
And I think that when you come from that and you have children, you always want to keep them prepared. And
yeah,
um, sometimes it may be a little overkill,
mm,
but it's like I just want you to not fall prey to life, not fall prey to the people in the world.
yeah,
Um, so I think that that is something, and something I've always told my son is like, the world is going to play with you enough, and I don't have time to do that. I'm not going to do that,
yeah,
right? And that's just preparation, so you're not feeling like you're living in a Walt Disney World.
mm,
But I think that too, coming from my background, it might have been, well, he's a strong little guy, but coming from my background, it was more like, I need you to know that, I need you to understand that, and I need you to be aware. Um, and sometimes I think like, maybe was it a little too, was it a little too much, but that is something that I think that coming from, these sorts of backgrounds that we instill in our children and just kind of prepare and overly prepare sometimes. Do you feel like you're overly preparing
Yeah,
sometimes?
yeah. I was gonna say I feel you on that. Yeah, that's me to a T. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do have that typical mum guilt sometimes.
Mhm.
Like saying with the overkill, I've gone a little bit too hard, or a little bit, talking about it a bit too much. That
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes I'm a bit like, oh, the tears will come out. I feel, bad, or maybe I should have said it a different way, but it is what it is. Yeah,
Hey, it is, but, we can't take it back, and all it is it's informational, it's educational,
yeah,
right?
exactly that.
Um, let's see. So now we have the children, we have a child, we have a partner,
Yeah,
and we use the word partner because you have a different take on marriage.
yeah.
Tell me about that. Is it because of your past experience, or what is that about?
Yeah, so obviously I've shared that me and my partner have been together for, well, it'll be 19 years this year. So go us. But
Yeah.
it's been a journey. It's taken, a lot of determination and conversations and just working together as a team to get where we are. So it hasn't been just all rainbows and unicorns. It's been tough, especially for him because he's had to. Well, he's come into this relationship with someone that comes with a lot of history, and he's had to learn quite quickly how to hold that space. And
Yeah.
he hasn't actually been through, a lot of, death within the family. He's had, experiences of that, but not in the, not to take away, but not in the same way that I have.
Right.
He still has both his parents, and, so no, like, what I'm trying to say is he hasn't had the same experience as me. So he's had to learn quite quickly, what
Yeah.
this all entails. But with regards to marriage, yeah, we are engaged. So that happened, so that happened about 3 years into our relationship.
Okay.
We were on holiday. So that was it was a really beautiful moment. But we'd already discussed, earlier on in the relationship that, our thoughts around marriage and what it entails. And his parents were separated. So they've been divorced for a while. So for him, I think he had his own thoughts on it. But then for me, it was the fact that, my parents aren't here. And I feel like, again, I don't know if it's stuff that you see in the movies or what, but you just expect your parents to be there, your dad to walk you down the aisle, your mum to be
Yeah.
there when you try your wedding dress on, and just finalising all the plans and it being an exciting moment. And obviously, I wasn't going to be able to have that. So, yeah, I just said very early on that I wasn't too keen on it.
Okay.
And as long as we were engaged, that was us being committed to one another. And yeah, here we still are. So that has remained. But yeah, with regards to marriage, again, another thing that comes to mind is about the fact that it's my dad's surname and I want to be able to continue that on. And just changing it just wasn't enough for me, to be able to have like a double barrel or something like that. It was,
Mhm.
you don't even have to change your name. I understand that. But for me, it was like I need to carry on our surname, and our family name. So it's something I'm really
Yeah.
attached to. And I think a lot of people don't actually talk about that side of
Yeah.
things, about the surname and, the changing, because it's mainly the woman that changes the name rather
Right.
than the man. So again, that was something that came to mind in our conversations.
Okay. And I think you may have mentioned this, but did you think about hyphenating it?
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, so we said about me like double barrel, I think it's called. Yeah, you can
Oh,
where you can I could have his surname because both our children have his surname. But yeah, I just again didn't like the idea of it. It has to be it has to be my surname. I don't know, I just feel really strongly
yeah.
about it. So
Yeah. Do you, so that was then, and it's been 19 years. 19 years is nothing to sniff at,
Mhm.
especially from what you've come from. And as young as you guys were getting together and
Yeah,
being able to hold it through. And I'm going to ask a few questions in that space, but that's nothing to sniff at, definitely. And for real, congratulations on that.
thank you.
Um, definitely. So that was then. Do you still have that same thought processing on marriage 19 years later?
I mean, things are changing. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's fair.
things are changing. Um, I mean, I might be able to reveal more in time, but yeah, that's all I can say on it. Things are changing.
Okay.
A bit more open to the idea, but again, doing things the Mel way, which is different. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And at your own pace.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you find as you got into the relationship, um, that was more difficult for you guys to overcome because of your history?
Um, I think yeah, the main thing is trust.
Okay.
Yeah, trust and being able to give the love as well as receive the love. I think, yeah, that's what comes to mind is knowing that I'm loved, but I can also give love, you know. I hadn't really been shown what love felt like.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, that was a big thing. So yeah, I think trust and love and acceptance, I think, is another thing that's just popped up. Um yeah, this is kind of me going into it. This is who I am. This is what I come with.
Yeah.
Kind of as blunt as it sounds, you're in or you're out, you know?
Well, yeah. Yeah. And when it comes to you giving love, how did that look? Did you know how to give love?
Not to begin with, no, because being honest, my partner was been my only partner. You know, it's been started off as obviously a boyfriend, and I say my partner. You
Yeah.
know, but yeah, obviously being young, like I said, I met him when I was probably around 14, 15. Then we obviously were in a relationship from 16 for me, and yeah, it was learning again as I go, and haven't done this before. Um, yeah, so it was just a new experience, but it's been all in all, it's been a good experience.
Awesome. Um, so this next question is going to be a little, maybe a little rough. Okay.
Okay.
Just do you feel that, or has it ever crossed your mind that your partnership is or was built on trauma bonding?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And
yeah.
how did you overcome that, or how did you get to the point where you were like, okay, maybe it was then, but it grew into what it is now? Or how did you start to even that out for yourself?
Yeah, the first thing I'd say that comes to mind is that with my partner, he's like the typical empath. Like he is what I would class as he's like the fixer, the rescuer. And I felt like when we first got together, obviously I'm living in a children's home and he was there at the right time in my eyes. But also it was again another part of my journey that was a very difficult time. So it's kind of like he was a blessing, and what you would class as like a what's the word? I can't think of the word now. Like when they say about fate, that's what I was gonna say. When it's like fate, like it was meant to be, because
Okay.
obviously we'd lost touch and then yeah, we'd see each other again and stuff. So it's like I've gone off tangent now.
Like a soulmate?
What's that, sorry?
Like a soulmate?
Yeah, so like yeah, like I feel like we were guided to one another. Like it's quite a
Okay.
big statement to make, but that's how I felt. And yeah, I just feel like as the relationship grew and we got to know each other better, it's yeah, it's changed and it's evolved over the years. But I feel like, yeah, what was once isn't how it is now. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And it can coexist, right? As long as it's respected in such a space. And when I say that, it's more so of um, he was your safety then, he was kind of like your safety blanket then, but he's still your safety blanket now.
Yeah.
It's just more so in a sense of I've grown to love you, I've grown to need you in a healthy way.
Mm,
Um, and I trust that you do have my security, at the forefront of your mind. We do
mm,
have children together, but I choose, right?
mm.
And this is where that control aspect comes in too, because understanding what you are in control of.
Yeah, yeah.
So in years, nothing to squint at all. However, there becomes an area where you grow from where you were at 16 to where you are now, and you say, "Hey, I get to choose this. I didn't get to choose back then.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was set, and things were just all off kilter for me. But now I have this man who has been with me for X amount of years. We have children together. I've grown in my emotions and in my thought processing, and now I get to choose him. I get to choose to be here. Um, and so because he's still a safety anchor for you, right?
Yeah.
And in any marriage and in any partnership, that's what you want. You
Mm,
want the balance, and you want someone that you could lean on when you totally don't have any sort of grounding up under your feet,
mm.
right? That's not a bad thing. That's what partners are there for
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it's right, right?
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, like I said, I feel so thankful, that I have him in my life. And
Yeah.
one thing that comes to mind as we're speaking is, again, the anxieties do come to the surface even with that.
Yeah.
Because like I said, obviously I come with a lot of history and a lot of wounds. And as
Mhm.
does he, and we've worked together on that, that we have that understanding where we can have these conversations and they might be a little bit uncomfortable and, it's not gonna be easy, but it's gonna allow us to grow together and also it will be a reflection on our boys as well, because we'll be able to show them, how our relationship has been, for when they potentially grow older and have a relationship, that's a big thing for us.
Yeah.
Um, just showing them, the raw and the real really, or this is what it's like to be with someone and yeah, it's been really important for us.
Yeah. Um, did he I assume that he's been pretty accepting of not being married. Was that a problem, or was he just like, okay, I love you and we're gonna do this. We're doing this with or without marriage vows. But did he feel slighted or kind of put to the back burner because he's like, okay, I understand dad and I understand he's passed away, but what about me? Did you have that sort of issue in that place, in that part?
No, not really. I think because I touched on it anyway, because of his own family dynamic, the fact that his parents were separated and they ended up getting divorced. I think he had his own feelings and thoughts around it. And yeah, it was never a really like although we discussed it, it was never something, that we had to keep discussing about. Once we spoke about it, it was kind of
So you
yeah,
guys agreed.
we agreed. It was, like I said, things are, changing now and we've had conversations of late, but um again, it's not something we've had to keep delving
Good.
into, So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm worried about that really.
Yeah. Because some men are just like, what? You don't want to be a wife. You don't want to, but when you have, I'm hearing your story and understanding where it all stemmed from and how you were treated, to know that it was put in the stars for you to align with someone who met you where you were, who gave you a safe space, and who was able to kind of take you in a sense, within their own life, within their own heart, within their own space, and love you in that space,
Mm,
and to care for you and nurture you in that space. Like that's a huge blessing for you,
yeah.
because how many years were you alone for,
Mm,
right? And had you not been blessed in this space to for this to happen and unfold the way that it did, just imagine you going along the lines of healing and doing what you're doing alone all these years.
mm,
That's would have been hard,
yeah.
right? And I think that, it's kind of like a saving grace, because where would you have been,
Mm,
right? What partners would you have been with? What kind of life would you have been leading? Like
yeah.
all the things that could have happened, it's just like something just swooped down and was like, I know that you've been through this, but I'm gonna save you, right? I'm gonna
Mm,
save you, and I'm going to put you in a space of protection. I know it's been hard, but hey, I need you to know that you're loved. I can't explain or give you all the reasons why everything transpired the way that they did, but I got you,
mm,
right? And
yeah.
so that's that spiritual aspect that was brought down into the physical aspect of letting Mel know, you're special, you're important, you're loved,
Mm,
all of those things. You are valuable, even though people made you feel that you weren't, right?
mm.
So I'm very grateful that it fanned out the way that it did for you, and that you're not going through this process alone.
Yeah, yeah, no, and appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, because that's exactly what it is. And, I
Mhm.
say that to my partner all the time. And, he's not there all the time with the spiritual stuff, but obviously I've spoke about the connection with my mum, and I do believe that he was sent, he was guided to me, and this was meant to be. And like I said, it comes with ups and downs, but mainly ups. So yeah, I'm really blessed to have him.
Yeah. Okay, so we are um partnershiped with children. We are
Yeah.
living a life together. We're doing all the things. What uh what else was that journey like? What else was included in that journey up to now?
Yeah, so then after obviously I had, my first son, then 4 years later, I fell pregnant and had my second son, and yeah, that was again another whirlwind because you're going from 1 to 2, which is yeah, it's a big leap. You've done it before, but then, yeah, you're doing it again, like you said earlier, doing things differently, than what you first did. So, again, just a big learning curve.
Yeah.
And then after that, yeah, we still remained in the home that we were in, and then we moved into another home where we are now. And um, in that time, yeah, there was a lot going on for me as well, which is too long to talk about now. But the long and short of it is that I had a lot of health issues as well. So I think I touched on that a little bit before, but yeah, I had a lot of health issues. So the place where I am is perfect for me now because I can kind of live and function and manage as best I can. Because yeah, I call it my fungalow, but it's a little bungalow. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, we do have a lot of fun here, and feeling like it feels like home is what I would say. It feels like I'm finally settled. I'm still working on that feeling of contentment, to be
Yeah.
honest. Because even, yeah, after all this time, the relationship that we've had, I've still, there's been that little niggling feeling of that contentment that I'm longing for, which it might be a bizarre thing to say, but yeah, it's almost like you have these anxieties or these thoughts of, is this too good to be true? Like I do always have that in the back of my mind, or I then have like the fears and the irrational thoughts and the not so nice things that come up, such as my partner, no one lives forever, and that's again a lot of the things that people don't talk about because it might be too morbid or um, we don't want to have them conversations and brush it under the carpet. But yeah, we don't live forever, and it's me becoming attached to someone, but then again in
Yeah.
the back of my mind, the fear of losing them and abandonment again, and going through that trauma again. So that was a big thing, that's come to mind, is that when I went into this relationship, that was in the back of my mind of, do I want to get close to someone? Because I've done that in the past and look what's happened, So yeah, even after all these years, that's still in the back of my mind.
Yeah, because when you suffer such loss and close loss, like, we all have losses that are even some grandparents, that but you're not as close with or what have you. But when cousins and all that, like, we all have those sorts of losses. But when it's close to home, like someone you are attached to, it's a different ball game. It's totally different. And that aspect of waiting for the other shoe to drop is always there when it's always been dropping, right? When it's always just been something, one thing after the other, and you live in survival mode. You live in that fight or flight mode all the time.
Yeah.
And most often, and I found myself there as well, just never really getting comfortable or never really settling in, or just having the feeling of settling, because it was like, I need to hurry up and do something because I don't know when things are going to be over. Or I need to or just not understanding that, not being able to be present in the moments,
Yeah.
and missing it because I'm moving from one thing to the other, or just the fear is taking over the joy that's happening in the moment.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I can resonate with that. Yeah, wholeheartedly. That is me to a T. And that's something that, again, I've dipped in and out of with the survival mode, because, again, I've had to do a lot of work over the years. And, it has been me. It's been from me, because I wanted to. But I
Yeah.
think when people talk about the healing journey, it's not, it's messy is the word. It's
We're
messy.
never healed. It's always healing.
Yeah. We're forever healing. Yeah, we'll never be healed. And I think we need to say that louder in the back for some people, because
Right? Yeah.
there's this there's a lot of stuff that goes around, and we could go down that rabbit hole, but I won't. But all I will say is that healing is messy. It's not face masks and I don't know, face mask and I don't know, a nice hot relaxing warm drink and put your feet up.
Yeah.
It's crying at 3 a.m. in the morning because you suddenly woke up and you've, I don't know, maybe had a nightmare or one of these thoughts that's popped into your head, and it's,
Yeah.
why now?
Yeah.
But
Absolutely. I had one of those fleeting thoughts, and that's why I say, it could be a little, you used the word earlier, and I actually had a teacher who used that on me. Um, Gosh, what word did you just use? Um, Morbid. 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 But you have these morbid kind of thoughts. And, yesterday I was thinking about, of course, my dad is always floating through my mind. His birthday's coming up February 10th. And I was thinking about, you know, him in the casket, me seeing him in the casket, and him, I was thinking about these random things that just always kind of float through my mind. And so, it's those moments where you have to heal through that. Like, do I allow myself to see that in my mind's eye, or do I just try to look away and think about something else? Do I allow myself to look at myself in the mirror and bust out crying? Oh yeah, I guess I can do that. It's like, it's never, and then some days it's like, you could look at a picture or the thought across and you'll be okay. And other days you are a complete mess.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a messy journey that you don't have control over, for one, right?
Yeah.
And that, yeah, and you have to really go with the flow.
Mm.
You have to go with the flow. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something I've been doing and leaning into more, is going with the flow, because
Mhm.
yeah, I can be very much in the the control aspect, because again, I didn't have the control that, I know that I'm aware that I can be like that. And again, it's all part of the learning. No.
Yeah. Let's see, 10 years from now, let's say 5 years from now,
Yeah.
even if we want to shorten it to 2 years from now, where do you see your growth? Where do you see yourself at from this day to 2 to 5 years from now?
Well, obviously you've mentioned already about the page. So obviously I share on my social media about my journey and my story, just in the hopes of inspiring people, just shedding a little bit of light that, things aren't going to get easier. I mean, I don't know what the right word is. They're not going to, they're going to get lighter, I think. Yeah, they're going to get lighter. It's not always going to feel this heavy. There's going to be heavy moments, but it's not always going to feel this way. But yeah, I think for me, I can just see already the growth in the page and the sessions that I also do, because I do these in-person sessions where I mix the grief and the art aspect together. So opening that space for people to be creative and just trying to build a community. So I think that is my sole focus, really. That is what's keeping me going. And obviously everyday life and being a mother and a partner. But yeah, the main focus for me is doing what I'm doing here now, which is sharing my story and sharing my voice and my truth. Because yeah, I've been quiet for quite a long time, and it's only over the last, say, 5-6 years that I have been this open, and spoken at great depth about things, So yeah, in 2 to 5 years, I hope that, my big dream is to have my own grief hub, is what I call it. That's my ultimate dream, is to be able to have kind of what I'm creating now, but in a bigger scale. So I want to have a safe, supportive space that people can come to, and there'll be different practitioners there, different, healing modalities that I've tried myself over the years and things that have helped me, such as breath work, somatic movement and exercise, meditation, Reiki, that sort of thing. And be readily available for people to be able to come and do, and just be with people that get it. We don't want to be here, but we are here, but we don't need to be alone. And that's how I have felt, and how I still do feel at times, alone. Because there isn't the people out there that 100% can resonate and relate to this,
Definitely. And personally, for yourself, where do you want yourself to be emotionally, psychologically, in your heart? Like, that's going to give you that contentment, or at least part of a piece of that contentment that you may not be able to put the exact words to, but that's going to give you a piece of that contentment. Where do you say you want to see yourself at within 2 to 5 years in that area?
I think it's just more like building on like what I've already been doing, like with the emotional aspect. I think it's just more processing. There's still so much there to process. Like, I just feel like I'm forever processing. So I think it's, and it's always going to be that way. But it's, what's the way of putting it? It's not making myself, feel wrong for, how I'm feeling, and, what may be coming to the surface. And a bit like what you mentioned earlier about being present, like, I feel like I'm doing that with my children, and again, I might be diverting here because I'm talking about others instead of myself. I find that quite difficult sometimes. So that's why I'm doing that. I can notice that. But with regards to me, I just want to be happy, and that's the long and short of it. I just want to be happy.
Yeah. And, that long-term processing is something that we always do. And I think that it's important for people who are experiencing that long time processing, who find themselves over analyzing things, who find themselves just being analytical, period, curiosity, trying to get that understanding, or at least trying to get peace in the understanding within yourself, is one of the biggest things. And I think that in our processing, it is important for us to make sure that we process in order to resolve, right? In order to put it in a place, whatever it is that we're processing, put it in a place that we found peace with, and we could leave it there,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And we put these things in compartments where we're not acting as if they don't exist anymore. We're not leaving anything under the rug. We've processed it. We've acknowledged it. We've accepted it. All the shadow things that we have to do with it, but we now have a place for it. And so I think that, often people get into that process mode of just the rumination over and over and over again, and they never find a place to put it, find peace with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we learn how to move forward with our lives, even with the loss of what we have, understanding that we're not necessarily leaving anything behind. We're growing through it,
Yeah.
and we have a way to be functional in it, and we're living and thriving in it instead of surviving.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Yeah. And that's exactly what I think it has been for me. Like when I've talked about it before, about that heaviness, it's like the load that I've been carrying as time goes on, it's become that little bit lighter. Not to say that things don't pop up and occur, but like you're saying, it's almost putting it into like a little, like an imaginary box.
Yeah.
And I feel proud of myself for that, to recognize that. And we should tell ourselves that more, and that's something I want to put out there. We should tell ourselves that we're proud of ourselves, So yeah, how proud of me.
Awesome. I'm proud of you too, Mel.
Thank you.
So Mel, tell me, if we think about it, and this may be a little stumper, and it's okay. Tell me, at this point, at this age, in this space and time, who is Mel? Who are you?
Well, I always say I'm me, Mel. That's how I actually when I speak to people, I just say I'm me, Mel. That's how I say it. Like, I'm just human, as I shared earlier, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm still here, but I am here for a reason. Like, I don't see myself as a healer, or like what I was mentioned about earlier about the fixer or the rescuer. Like, I'm just here with a purpose, and I'm still just uncovering what that is. Slowly but surely I'm finding out. But I always say that I'm finding me for the first time, and it just seems like I'm on a constant hamster wheel with that, like that saying of finding me for the first time, because there's all these little things that pop up and I uncover, and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that about myself, or certain situations I'm in, and it's like, I don't know, I smile with it because it's exciting at times, because it gives me that little bit of a buzz,
Yeah. It's like, I am amazing, right?
Yeah. So it's like, it's a nice place to be in. And like, don't get me wrong, obviously it comes with the sad times, and like the what ifs and the whys do crop up a lot of the time. But all in all, I feel glad, I'm at a place where I am right now, and things can only get better, right?
That's what we hope. That's what we hope. That's what we hold on to. Okay. And so the wellness practice that is your overall goal, are you already kind of dipping in that, right?
I think with the page, obviously that's been evolving over the last 5-6 years, where I started off sharing it on my personal page, then, I did a YouTube and went on radio, did news articles, etc. And then it has evolved into Echoes of the Soul Grief Support, which I've been running. It'll be a year next week, actually, that I've been running the page. And then, like I said, with these sessions as well, I had my first session of the year last month. And it was a wonderful evening. And I'm so grateful for the people that came and shared that space. I just feel really honoured, just really blessed that I decided to do this, but that people have come to me, shared their stories, they've trusted me with their hearts, and shared about their loved ones. I think that's what it is. I'm so big on that because I never had that space to just share about my parents, and most of the time it would be the negative things that had happened or the way that they died. And I just wanted to change the narrative on that, to be able to talk about how they lived and who they were as people. And like I said before, that they were people before they become parents, they were a couple. And it's just a lot of uncovering that I've had to do. But I've kind of gone a bit of on a ramble there, but I don't know. It's just the way I talk, it just comes from the heart. And 9 times out of 10, I don't know what I'm even going to say most of the time.
It happens, and that's pretty much how I operate.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I operate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's the part of being authentic, right? And that's the part of not being scripted. And I think that in our communities, in life in general, people are so used to being scripted. They're so used to putting on the mask that we talked about and showing up in these ways and advertising their grief and advertising all these things. But it's like, who are you when that advertisement is gone? I understand that, yes, we have to get the stories out. And I understand that, there's a monetary value out there for it because everybody's grieving. We understand that. There's business and then there's personal, right? But not allowing the business to overshadow the personal aspects and the healing that you're really doing. That is the really the nuts and bolts of why you're even able to show up to advertise.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? So I just I appreciate your candidness. I appreciate your authenticity and your ability to think about what you have to say and then saying it, or not.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I do have a filter some of the time, but 9 times out of 10, I just say it how it is and then think about stuff.
Think about it after.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's see, Mel, anything else you want to tell us about or put us on alert to look out for in the near future or anything?
No, I think just I shared about just my page really. If anyone wants to find me, I'm on Instagram and Facebook under Echoes of the Soul Grief Support. And things are growing there. It's getting all very exciting, but it is just me, myself, and I. I am the face behind the page. I share my journey, which is obviously a big thing in itself. And what you see there is what you get. There's no editing, there's no filter, and it's just about being human and, like you're saying, authentic, real, genuine. Like I read something recently where it said, it says something like, who are you when you're not on social media? And for me, I can look at that wholeheartedly and say, I am me. I'm the same person I am on social media than as you see me now in real life. And I will always be that way. It's just something that's just ingrained in me because, like it's all about being real and authentic and raw because we don't have enough of that in the world, could go down a rabbit hole, but I won't. But going back to what you said about how you can find me, social media mainly. And I just share updates and just have you come join me in my journey really as it grows and evolves naturally and organically.
Awesome. And everything that is attached to Mel, her Instagram, if she has an email address, and even do Do you have a site where they sign up for your, or a link where they sign up for your classes or your group classes, or is it just when they come about, then you'll post a link on your Instagram?
Yeah, so I do normally advertise it on the page, but then
Okay.
I do have I use Eventbrite for the events. So I normally post on there as well. So it's like an open thing, that anyone's welcome. Um
Okay.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
So her Instagram information will be in her bio under the podcast. So that's how you'll be able to link up with her and stay informed about the discussions and the classes that she's going to have. Uh, let's see, Mel, I am just extremely honored that you have spent your time with me and that you have trusted me in this space. You are a breath of fresh air, and I'm just grateful that you are still here alive, kicking with us and utilizing everything that you are, the me Mel, in all of what you're doing and making it available for people to come and journey with you. I wholeheartedly appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Polly. So yeah, I appreciate you too. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Yeah, like it means the world, honestly. Like what I said about before, just being able to speak about my journey and not have the shame or the guilt
Yeah.
or anything that's attached to it. So thank you for this space and thank you for making me feel so comfortable and at ease. Appreciate you.
Definitely, definitely. Everyone else, thank you for coming into the shadow box and just spending this time with us and listening to Mel's story. Remember, this is part two. If you're just catching part two, we have part one as well. And so everything will be posted, and we just appreciate you guys visiting us in the shadow box. Until next time, namaste.